welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. An urgent meeting of the UN Security Council is expected today in response to North Korea's latest missile test. It's seen as a new type of ballistic threat and another clear violation of Security Council resolutions. The test also presents a whole new kind of test for US President Donald Trump. Paula Hancock has more now from Seoul.
A new and improved intermediate-range missile, hailed as a success by North Korea, personally directed by a clearly delighted Kim Jong-un. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff saying Monday the way it was fueled is different. In the past, a liquid fuel, this time solid fuel, meaning it's more mobile and can be launched faster. The first missile in close to 4 months, and the first North Korean test for US President Donald Trump.
By North Korean standards, this is a pretty muted provocation. There are other things they could have done that really would have put Trump in a corner and not given him much room for any sort of diplomatic maneuver.
Mr. Trump was hosting Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at the time of the launch. While Mr. Abe called it absolutely intolerable, the US president was far more restrained, merely stating his full support for Japan. The Trump administration's North Korean policy is still unknown, adding to regional concerns about potential instability.
Because we have changes in power in the US and probably in South Korea as well, how these two countries will respond is, in a way, is not very predictable as well.
This missile launch isn't unexpected, and it could have been far more worrying for Washington. Kim Jong-un on January 1st warned that he was close to test launching an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of hitting mainland United States. This isn't it, but that threat remains. Paula Hancock, CNN Seoul.
Well, Pyongyang's main ally, Beijing, has responded saying it opposes North Korea's missile test. Well, for more on this, David McKenzie joins us live from Shanghai. And our chief US security correspondent, Jim Sciutto, is in Washington. Good to have you both with us. I want to start first with Jim. This, of course, is the first real policy test for President Trump since he took office. And he gave a rather muted response. One short sentence, didn't even mention North Korea. What should we make of that?
Well, it shows that there are no simple solutions to this threat, really. The responses during the campaign, it's very easy to say, let's be tougher on North Korea. Now that he's in office, you have the challenge. How do you manage China's response? China has the most influence over North Korea. What necessitates a significant U.S. reaction that doesn't then escalate the conflict here? There was even talk of military action thrown around during the campaign trail. Obviously, now that you're in office, you have to treat those kinds of moves very differently. The one thing I would note is we saw the North Korea threat sort of come into contact with the Trump style of governing, because he learned about this in the midst of a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort, where he was this weekend with the Japanese Prime Minister. And in the midst of tables surrounded by members of this club, he's there getting his reports from his advisors. They're reading the documents, informing him of the test, using the lights from their cell phones in the midst of this crowd there, which has raised questions here in Washington and the U.S. about whether that was the most secure way to discuss one of the greatest national security threats to the U.S. and really, as you say, the first major national security test of his administration.
And just on that point, Jim, how unusual is that to have the President of the United States discussing that sort of security detail in a public space?
Well, I always say that the word unprecedented has been worn out in the campaign and since the election here, but certainly unprecedented. And that's the kind of conversation you would normally have in a classified environment. And of course, President Trump now during the campaign attacked Hillary Clinton for the misuse, the alleged misuse of classified information. To see that happen in such a public setting there with lots of eavesdroppers, potential, not to mention unsecure cell phones, etc., it raises some genuine questions.
Well, stay with us, Jim. I just want to go to David. China, of course, is not only North Korea's main ally, it's also their main trading partner. And therefore, it has the most influence. How is China responding?
Well, they have responded in a muted way, much like you might expect in the circumstances, Lynda, because this type of missile launch, while it is a new missile that we haven't seen before, it isn't the intercontinental ballistic missile that everyone was fearing. So China will want to react in kind, and it has a very different calculation to make than the US and South Korea or Japan might make, because as you say, North Korea is an ally. I would say not necessarily an ally, but certainly China is North Korea's only friend in the region and in the world, in fact. And as a major trading partner, the major trading partner, China holds a lot of power over its neighbor. However, historically, China has not wanted to wield all of that power to cause the collapse of the regime, though it has supported sanctions in recent years against North Korea, and it has again said that this is against the UN Security Council resolutions, and it will talk in the UN later today with the Council to try and figure out what to do next. But it's unlikely to do anything drastic or dramatic because of the own calculations that China has to make.
Okay, and just back to Jim on that Security Council meeting, what can we expect later today?
Well, I think as David was saying, it was almost, you could use the word clever, a clever move by North Korea, right? That it wasn't at one end an intercontinental ballistic missile direct threat to the U.S. Or perhaps, say, another nuclear test. It was somewhat short of that, an advance in missile technology, which is significant. But in the range of things they could have done to greet a President Trump, it was short of the extreme, which China will be responsive to, and China will not want escalation. China, of course, has a veto on the UN Security Council, so it limits the steps that the UN can take. Will this be the kind of thing that triggers, for instance, more significant economic sanctions from China, the one trading partner that matters with North Korea? Maybe not. And so it'll be worth watching that UN Security Council. Is it just a strongly worded statement? Is China on board? Is there something more significant? But it may be that there's not.
Okay, Jim Sciutto in Washington and David McKenzie in Shanghai. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.